Welcome back everybody. Today I'm going to do a restoration type video on a 35-year-old Raleigh Dynatech road bike. So obviously that's going to involve a complete strip down to a bare frame, cleaning, lubrication, replacing any damaged parts, reassembly and setup. So I hope you enjoy this. So this is what we've got in. It's I say 35 years old now, I believe, from the catalogues. It's a Raleigh Dynatech 600 using bonded lug technology. Quite cutting edge for its day, to be fair, so quite a decent bike. It's got Shimano 105 SC components. It looks like it's pretty much fully original, apart from potentially these pedals, and I don't think it's the original saddle either, but it's actually fairly period correct looking wise. Going on to the front, we're going to obviously change this bar tape, clean up the brake lever hoods are in good shape, just need a good clean, and the wheels feel pretty good, to be fair. Obviously not the original tyres. It's pretty difficult to get anything that's 35 years old now that have not perished completely. So we'll be sticking with these Continentals that are fitted. So let's get it in stand and let's get it stripped down to the bare frame. So it may be slightly more time consuming than others because of things like this fixed cut bottom bracket. They can be a bit of a swine to get out. And the headset is obviously a threaded unit. So again, slightly more time consuming. Apart from that, it's basically just a normal bike. So let's crack on. I'm going to be replacing all the cable inners. The outers I'm going to keep because they're an older colour that are very difficult to get hold of now, and they're actually in really good condition. So we're keeping those, but change the inners. These can be quite challenging sometimes. That's okay, that one, good. It's in reasonable condition, considering how old it is. It's actually in pretty good condition. There's a little bit of corrosion on some parts of the frame, but on an older steel frame, I guess that's really to be expected, but certainly nothing structural, no holes in it. So there's no quick link on this chain. It is an older chain, but it's actually still way in spec, so I'm intending to reuse this. Let's run it through the cleaner. So we're going to split it the old-fashioned way, where we push the pin sort of mostly out, but just enough to stay in its outer plate. And you should be able to just flex the chain open. Hopefully that's enough. There we go. Then we just pull the chain off. There's 105 SC derailleur. So this is a 7-speed version. They did 7 or even 8-speed. So it's 7 on this bike. A nice design with this unusual solid part of the cage. Yeah, I quite liked it when they did that. I guess they save weight by chopping it out now though. Same on the front derailleur. I have cut the cable, but I'll just undo it here. Just take note of where the cable goes through. There's a very clear groove on this one. Pinch bolt. Oh, they put it on the back on this one. Always put the bolt back in the front derailleur so you don't lose it. Ask me how I know. So onto the cranks, just get this cap out. It's very careful because it's only plastic. I'm amazed it's stayed as long as it has, to be fair. Whip the bolt out. If you've not seen my video on using air tools, tune in, have a look. That's come straight out in 35 years. That's probably never been out. Just repeat on the other side. Crank puller. I don't think these are the original pedals. I think it had metal versions of these. But the same design, but just a better quality one. Okay. Again, repeat on the other side. Just whip this bottle cage off. Okay, so starting this bottom bracket, this is obviously the older fashioned cup and cone version. So try not to just hammer these out with a screwdriver, but use the proper tool. Hopefully without damaging the paint. There we go. This is the easy side. The fixed cup side can be rather challenging. We will find out shortly. That one. Just use a peg spanner to try and get these out. They can be quite tight as well. There we go. Once they get going, they're fine. Okay, so the axle and bearings should come out now. Let's get the other one out. That's stuck in there. Actually in really good condition. There's a little bit of corrosion. I think that's from the inside of the frame, bottom bracket cup. And clean all that off. Okay, so this could be the challenge. There's a left-hand thread on the fixed cup, so we'll unscrew clockwise. So I'm going to use a fixed cup spanner. And it's going to be very tight. Be really careful not to let this slip off, because there's only a very shallow engagement. So press it on with your hand and... Oh, gee. Yes! It's off. That was a fairly easy one, to be fair. Some of them are extremely difficult, almost as difficult as seat posts sometimes. That's okay. Cup's look in good condition as well, obviously greased, but there doesn't look to be any particular wear in there. That's good. Okay, just going to get this bar tape off there. I think it's some kind of leather tape really, so it's strong. Don't scratch the bars. Okay, so I just cut the housing off there. So this is an internally routed full brake cable housing. So what we need to do really, just cut this cable here, pull that out and leave the inner cable in, then pull a plastic liner through so we've got something to guide back through with. So hold on to this bit, hold on to that and pull the rest of the outer through. So you have the inner cable still in the frame, makes it easy to guide it through. So now I'm just going to run a plastic liner through that and remove the inner cable. So that's long enough. So just slide that over the cable and then carefully pull that through till you see the other side of it. And that's that there. So that gives us something to put the cable back through. You should always do that on internally routed cables. It's a much easier way of doing it. I'm just going to tape this onto the frame so it doesn't accidentally pull through at some point. So I pull the cable first. It just unscrews. Done. Bit of corrosion there, we can clean that. Again, just keep your screws somewhere safe. You don't want to lose that, you can't get them. Handlebars and stem, 6mm. These can be quite challenging sometimes. Too bad. That's coming out nicely. If it gets stuck, what you need to do is just unscrew this a bit further till it comes up. Give it a good whack on the top of there with a hammer. It'll free up the expander bolt. You should be able to get it out if you're lucky. It's really clean, to be fair. Really clean, grease on there. So just remove the headset now. So you need some old-fashioned 32mm headset spanners. Just one there and one there. That should come out, no problem. So there's a washer under here that locks into the tab. So you just unscrew it a little bit, give it some, screw it back in, and then we can use a magnet. You just pull that out with. There we go. So it's got a little tab on there. Take the cup off. Nice 105 headset as well. Some areas that manufacturers skimp on really is headsets and things like that, so it's nice to see a full group set on this bike. I think the hubs are X-Age, which is one lower than 105, but we can live with them. And that's the fork out. Again, bearings are in really good condition. So I'm going to just tap out these cups now. To take headset cups out, you'll need one of these little sprung tools and obviously a hammer. Just put that through the headset itself. Pull it up until it clicks into the cup. You'll hear it. That's clipped in, and then we just hit it. There we go. Not strictly necessary to remove these cups, but nice to get down to the full bare frame. And that's that one. So the only thing left is a seat post now, and we'll just take that out and hold the frame loosely by this top tube. I'm not clamping it, it's literally just held in there loosely. Take this bolt out. The saddle still moves, which is nice. It's a bit scratched up, but there she is. There's the original Dynatech seat post actually on this. It's a bit, I think someone's chopped it at some point. It seems pretty short, but it's all there. I'll say this saddle, I don't think it's the original saddle, but it's not too bad, to be fair. I think we'll probably just clean this up and keep it. So there we go, that's stripped down to the bare frame now. It didn't take too long, to be fair. It didn't put up much of a fire. I was expecting a challenge on the bottom bracket and seat post potentially, but luckily these came out quite nicely. So what we're going to do now is clean this up, give it a good polish, inspect for any obvious damage, but be fair, it looks in really good condition. And obviously we're going to strip down and service all these components and run them through the ultrasonic cleaner, reassemble, grease and adjust. Like I say, we're adding new gear and brake inner cables, new bar tape, and we'll see if we find anything else along the way that it needs. Okay, so I'm just going to strip down all these individual components now. So these chain rings, bolts spin on the back, you need one of these special little spanners. I think this is officially the oldest tool in the workshop. Genuine Shimano. So you just lock it into the pins on the back and then do it. And then she's off. Again, I'm not going to strip these brakes down because they can be quite challenging to get back together without either being too loose or too tight. So these are actually working perfectly, so there's no point. I'm just giving some lubrication on the pivot points, that's all they need. Even these are working fine, so it's remarkable really for the age of the bike that all of this stuff works. It's either been very well maintained or kept inside forever or not used, or a combination of all three, I guess. So rear derailleur, just going to take the jockey wheels out, clean all these up. All this will go through the ultrasonic cleaner as well. This is before they started putting the other bolt on the other side, so it's a bit of a challenge to get this one out with the spring tension in the derailleur. These really hurt when they go. There you go. Not too bad condition. Lovely short cage derailleurs, I do miss these. Even a short cage now is kind of like this length. The capacity of them is pretty atrocious, but they look good. Jockey wheels are in good condition as well. Shimano. Ready for ultrasonic. This is just a cover that came off there. You can take this apart, I might do, but it feels nice and free anyway. You can lubricate inside here. Yeah, there's nothing wrong, there's no corrosion in there. I am going to leave this crown race on the fork, it's just not worth taking off, there's no point. It's in good condition. The handlebars are saying we're in really good condition as well, the levers are nice. There's a sticker missing on the other side, this 105 stickers fell off, but not a great deal we can do about that. Hoods are in actually really good condition. Get the wrap with some nice fresh white tape, the original Raleigh bars, nice shiny stems, in good condition. Let's service these wheels as well. Obviously I don't know what size this sprocket is, but my other one won't fit, so just use an old chain whip. There we go. There we go, that's a very old fashioned one with the threads on the top. Still sounds really good though, to be fair. Spoke wise, there's no real damage to here. Nothing's, obviously the chain's never really been down there by the looks of it. It's not chewed up any of the spokes, that's all good. Bearings are a little bit loose, probably just dry with grease, to be fair. Tyres, these Continentals are actually in really good condition, so I'll say we're going to keep those. And clean up the rims, check the trueness, check the spoke tension, feels all good. Yeah, they're fine. These are X-Age HG50. And front wheel wise, again, just a bit crusty grease really, to be fair. A little bit of corrosion, but nothing that won't clear up. So what we're going to do now is run all of this through the ultrasonic cleaner, give it all a good clean, and reassemble, obviously with appropriate lubrication where needed. Clean the frame, polish that, clean the wheels, lubricate the hubs, etc, etc. So plenty to do, let's crack on. Okay, so just going to load up the ultrasonic cleaner. I've put some fresh fluid in it today for extra special effect, so literally just throw everything in. It's a nice big ultrasonic so I can get chain rings in and everything basically. So here we go. Probably get most of the bike in here, to be fair. Although the extra dirty bits like the bottom bracket, headset bearings, I'm going to clean them up first outside of the machine. Same with the jockey wheels, I've scraped off the worst. All the little bolts go into a little cage so you don't lose them. Skewers, front derailleurs, everything's in there. Okay, let's go. Okay, so I've actually got new bearings in stock for these, so I may as well just change these over. Headset, bottom bracket, Get rid of these. They're in pretty good condition, but the grease is very, very sticky and will take forever to clean off. So for the rest of it, I'm just going to use some Zep degreaser, clean off the worst of the grease on here, and then put them back into the ultrasonic with the rest. If you put them in like this, it's just going to contaminate the fluid so quickly. You can see the grease on here. Just making a start on cleaning the foot. Give it a good soak with Zep again. And a nylon brush. So that's the first batch out of the ultrasonic. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't come up perfectly clean. You have to give it a bit of a wipe down in the end, but it comes off pretty easily. This headset's only been in there for a couple of minutes, so it might need a bit longer. It's still coming off. Come up nice. And so some of these finishes, you don't want to put painted finishes in there too long, because it can make them dull. So I'm tempted just to do this bit by hand. Any black painted cranks, I don't tend to put those through if I can help it. That's got all that old grease off and come up pretty well. That's the headset cup. There's no wear in there at all, so with new bearings this is going to be sweet. Make sure you get the seals. There is a lip on this seal that faces outwards compared to that bit, so it goes in like this. So I'll just clean through the rest of these bits now. I do need to use a cleaner cloth at the end, but I'm just getting the bulk off initially. This is just some very light corrosion on this cage, so again, not much we can do with those. I do want to try and find a cleaner pinch bolt for this though. Brakes are good. I'm just going to blow through these with compressed air. So that one that is seized still needs some work. Sometimes the heat of the ultrasonic frees them up, but not on this one. Bottom bracket axles come up. There's literally no wear on there at all. It's beautiful. Honestly say, they don't make them like they used to. This rear derailleur should look almost new as well, I think. Jockey wheels, they've come up nice. Bit of lubrication on them. Even the skewers, everything. Fixed cup, good as new. Perfect. Chain rings, just a quick wipe down again on the teeth. That will come off. So I'll just finish this off and give them a wipe with the clean cloth, and then we'll look at reassembling. So on the caliper with the seized thumb adjuster, I'm just giving that a soak now in a combination of some WD-40 and some penetrating oil. So I'll give that 10 minutes to do its stuff, and then hopefully we can work that free. So on the brake pivots, we're just going to give it some, again, TF2 lubricant spray, similar to GT85. Use that if you've got it. Make sure you get some in this little plastic bit here that guides the spring. Just pivot down here, pivot up here, and a pivot for the quick release there. Just give it a good soaking. I'm going to wipe it down anyway, obviously, and then just work it into the pivots. Nice. We'll clean these pads as well, don't worry. Same on the derailleurs. Just give it a good soaking, because obviously it's been through the ultrasonic, so it's washed out any grease or anything that's in there. Give it a good soak. Rear derailleur, the same. You can get some just behind this seal. Get in there. All the pivots. Again down here, it will find its way down there a little bit. The derailleur's come up really nice. It's almost brand new, to be fair. Perfect condition. Gear levers, I've not put those through the ultrasonic. What I'm going to do with these is run through the finish line 2-in-1, which is a cleaner and degreaser. Sorry, degreaser and lubricant all in one. Again, just flood that through the shifters. It's good stuff. Okay. So leave all that soaking for 5 minutes while we attempt to get this seized thumb adjuster out of the caliper. Okay, so with a caliper that's seized, I've pulled this plastic part off the end so I can get a grip on the actual nailed bit there in the vise, and then just really gently take your time. It is moving a microscopic amount, so that's great. So literally just do this and it will eventually free itself up. Okay, off, put a new spring on there and reassemble it. Okay, so just run a tap through that just to clear it up. There we go, all back together, nice and free now. Obviously there's some grease in there as well, so there we go. There's the chain and cassette now out of the ultrasonic. Not come up too badly, to be fair. I'll struggle to get one of these cassettes, so it's obviously there's literally no wear on the chain. It's at 0.5% wear, so it's either been maintained or never been used. So we'll just clean this up now the best we can. It's actually been through the Ultrasonic twice to get the bulk of it off, but it's not too bad. We'll get a cloth and run it down these slots and that'll clean all up. The lock ring is in great shape. The spacer that goes on the end. And this is the smallest sprocket. Smallest sprocket is a 13 on this one. The chains actually come up really well as well, to be fair, so I'll just give this a wipe down, blow through the airline and lubricate. So just clamp the cassette by one tooth carefully in the vise, don't bend it, and just run a cloth through. Some cassettes you can take apart, but this one's riveted together, so we've got to do it this way. You can get little flossing stick things and you get a little brush, but I think cloth's just the easiest for me. Just take your time. Okay, so I found a slightly better pinch bolt for the front derailleur. Slightly less corrosion on it, so we'll do. So we're just going to rebuild this rear derailleur now. Find out which is the good. That's the G pulley, so G pulley is top. Have his little sleeve that goes in the middle. Drop of grease in there. I'm not convinced how much difference it makes, but best practice. This is the only bit that really needs any grease on a derailleur, is this piece here. These are literally just dust covers, they don't do much at all. So drop one screw through the top bolt, so it just sits there like that. Put your G pulley on. These are not directional. A little bit of Loctite, just a drop, more than enough though. And you can just screw this cage on roughly by hand, gives you a help. There we go, that goes on there like that. Just keep my thumb on the back of there just to wheel it on. Don't tighten it yet. Put your other jockey wheel in. You can just drop the Loctite onto this thread in here, does the same job. Not too much as well. Okay, bolt through there, that's in there. Tighten that down, that's 3mm on both of them. Nice and tight on these, don't go bonkers because it's only a small bolt, but you do want some good amount of tension in there. So it's difficult to do the other one because of the spring, so just be careful where you're holding it. And there's a lot of spring tension in my hand at the moment with this, so be careful. And just tighten this other bolt up. Right, wipe down any excess oil that we've sprayed on it. Just clip this cover back on. There is a bit of corrosion on there. I've not noticed that before. It's a shame. Apart from that, it's in really good condition. Just going to reassemble the chain set. I like to put just a drop of grease on there, can prevent any creaks that you sometimes get. Just best practice really, on both sides. Not really for corrosion, I say, if you're getting clickings or creakings, they can be difficult to track down, and quite often this is the area that's giving you the grief. Make sure a little bit gets inside so the bolts get covered as well. So first of all, big ring. This pin here goes behind the crank arm. It's pretty straightforward, like that. Just get one bolt started and it makes life a lot easier then. Drop that through the top. And then on the back, again, you've got a little tab here. So on this one, just make sure when you take it apart, you remember which way around this chainring goes. This one, the writing was visible from drive side, so it goes this way around. And the little tab goes there behind the crank as well. Okay, just loosely assembled, just tighten these up now. Nice and tight on chainring bolts. Not sure what the torque is, to be fair, I can't say I've ever measured them, but good and tight. Steel bolts, sorry. Okay, so that's them loosely tightened, just go around and tighten. Tight, tight, tight. If they start slipping again, you would need this on the back, but these are behaving. Tight and tight. Quick wipe down. This is in really nice condition. This is very, very nice condition. So now we just need to make a start on the wheels, really. So these are looking pretty crusty on the outside. I think it's just grease, to be fair. So we'll take them apart. There is some corrosion on the axle itself, but I should be able to clean that up on the grinder with a wire brush attachment. So just take one side off on the cone, tight, the washer, and the cone is there. So just put your 17 on the other side and just unscrew the cone. Once it comes, it'll come out easily. Okay, so that's that. So what you need is two magnetic picks to grab the bearings as they all fall out. Just on this side here, take the cone straight off, don't lose it. Just let the axle drop through very slightly and grab all the balls with the magnet. There you go. Actually in really good condition as well. Pull the axle all the way out. Use the other magnet to grab that one and the rest of the bearings. So we're just going to get these dust caps out, clean it all up. Best tool I've found for that is this really old metal tie lever. It does a good job. Just ease your way around and it'll pop out. Just be careful because you can bend these so easily. And then we can get good access to the cup to clean that. That's in good condition as well. There's plenty of grease in there, but it's all just dried up and crusty, but there's no actual wear on the cup, which is great news. That's the only thing really that would write a wheel off, is damage to the cup. Just using some heat on this other side because it's proven to be pretty stubborn. What we try and do is heat the aluminium part first, because that'll expand at a greater rate than the steel cover that's in the middle. And it should just pop out then. That's the plan anyway. There's no plastic bits left in here to melt, so you're okay. Coming very slowly. Yeah, don't touch that, that's hot. Again, this side's in good condition. So we'll just get some degreaser in there, get the brush in there again and clean it up. Just dried grease there. Yeah, that's fine. Good soak. Nylon brush again. Just clean that. Perfect. Beautiful cups. Again, they don't make them like they used to. The amount of wheels are hard to write off because cups have been damaged. I have got a few spare cups, but the chances of having the right one are pretty slim. Just repeat that on the other side. Good as new. Fantastic. We'll just clean the shell as well. It's a bit tricky. Just spray some degrease on it and get your brush in best you can. Just drop it. Doesn't add anything to performance or reliability doing this, but it just makes a big difference overall to the appearance when the bike's all back together. A bit crusty grease here still. Okay, so that's ready for bearings now. Just going to try and clean some of this corrosion off on the wire, the wheel. Obviously not touching the cone, the bearing surface. It's not bad actually. It's come up quite nice. So I'm just going to replace the bearings. If you use one of these rulers, it tells you what size it drops through. 3/16 just drops through the whole way. So there's 10 bearings in each side. 10 and 10 now. Just going to use Shimano premium grease on this one. Plenty of grease in there just to hold the bearings. So that's 10. Just going to clean the back of this cap before we put it back in. I'm just going to preload that with some Shimano grease. Tap this back in, which can be interesting. I'll just use a very small rubber mallet for this and just go gently. When you put the cones in, it will pull itself in any further if it needs to go. Just repeat that on the other side, obviously. 10, and again refit. I'm literally just using the weight of the hammer there to do that. It's hardly touching it. So now just reassemble the axle. Don't matter which side you put this in. Just put a bit of grease on the centre. It doesn't do anything, it just prevents corrosion. Just a drop of grease, and then just drop that through without knocking the bearings out. Keep your finger on the back of the axle so it doesn't fall out, and then reassemble the cone. That's one thing a lot easier with modern bikes is cartridge bearings. Not that this is difficult, but the issue with these wheels is once the cup is damaged on the wheel, generally speaking, it's time for a new wheel, or hub at least, depending on the wheel. If it's worth rebuilding the rim, you can rebuild the rim onto a new hub, but generally speaking, it's, on this sort of quality, it's cheaper just to buy a new wheel rather than paying the labour for a wheel, rebuild new spokes, etc, etc. There are exceptions to that rule obviously, but the general thinking behind it. So just do that loosely, drop the washer on, and this nut, the serrated side, goes towards the frame to grip it. And it's just a matter of balancing it with the cone spanner on the other side. So just nip it up roughly, feel the axle. That feels really good, there's no play there, but it's still obviously nice and smooth. So if you're confident with that, just tighten it up. The other side's still tight, obviously, they could have worked loose over the years. Very tight, yep. So that wheel's done pretty much, so just a quick wipe down. Move on to the back wheel. So it's a different size cone spanner on the back, 15mm on this one. Always bigger than the front. Open it up. Oh, it's tight. Get your magnets ready again. Bone dry in here, there's not a drop of grease inside. It's tempting just to squeeze some more new grease in here and just put it back together, but if you got this far, you may as well just keep going another 2 minutes and get the whole thing out. The bigger bearings in the back as well, these are 1/4 inch bearings. Again, in really good condition. Okay, being awkward. Cups in there, again, look great. Let's just some degreaser in there while we do the other side. Don't go crazy, because all you're going to do is wash all the grease out of the free hub body, then it can be served. I think there's an 8mm down here. Strip that down and do it. This sounds really good as it is. Just pop this one out. So we'll give it some heat. Almost. Here we go. Degreaser. It's going to get that 5 minutes to soak. Still hot. Okay, so that's cleaned up. Again, it's literally like brand new, this wheel. This is incredible. 35 years old and it looks like it's done 2 miles. Amazing. Just reassembled again with some fresh bearings and grease. Right, let's see if this will go in. No problem. Same on the other side. Just a bit more grease. Yep. It just stops where the bearings are. And then we're just going to put the axle in again. Quick clean, there's no corrosion on this, just do it. Good. So this is the side that goes underneath the freehill body. We do need to make sure these are tight, because what you don't want to do is put it all back together and find out that cone is loose. Get these up, they're tight. Put the axle through carefully without knocking the bearings out and refit your cone. Dead easy. So just put the spacer, it will wash up, and the nut with the serrations facing out. Feels great, doesn't feel any play. Just nip that up. There we go, that's both the wheels re-greased, fresh grease, fresh bearings. Another 35 years left in these, I think. Really nice. So we are just going to polish the rims up a little bit and check they are true. All the spokes are stainless, they're all in really good condition. Tension feels great anyway, so I suspect they're going to be pretty straight, but I'll just check now. So they are pretty straight, there's a tiny bit on this side. The dish is not very good, I don't know if I can show you that very well, but the dish is a big gap on this side and pretty much touching on this side. So really the whole wheel wants to move over sort of this side a couple of millimeters, but the tension is very tight. So yeah, I'm a bit cautious to start pulling this dish right over, because it may have been dished this badly for a reason on the frame. So what we'll probably do is just get it straight now, and if it is a problem in the frame, we can still do that in the frame by literally just loosening this side half turn, tightening this side half turn, until we'll pull the dish of the wheel back to where it should be. But at the moment I'm just going to true this. It's just very slightly out on this side. We are using rim brakes, so we need to make sure these are pretty straight, otherwise it does affect the performance of the brakes and the setup. So that's nice and straight. I'll say the dish is not where I'd like it to be, but what I think I'm going to do just now before we go any further is put the frame in the stand, put this wheel into the frame and see where it sits. So the wheel's in the frame, and the gap on both sides of this is pretty much exactly the same. So if I did dish this wheel over to where it should be in the stand, this tyre would end up rubbing on the frame itself. So we're going to leave it as it is. It seems quite happy there. Okay, so that's most of the parts ready now for reassembly, so we can move on to looking at the frame itself. So there are some spots of corrosion, but let's be real, this is a sort of £200 bike. It's not a £5,000 sort of classic Italian thing, so we're not going to go bonkers with it. It's not going to go to full respray or anything daft like that. It's just going to be cleaned up and made roadworthy and look the best it can for its age. So on this one, I'm tempted to face the bottom bracket, because obviously the fixed cup sits flush against this frame and there is paint in the way, so really that shouldn't be there. It should be a nice flush metal surface. The only issue is really this paint can get a bit flaky, so when you do start facing it, it's quite aggressive, and you don't want to just end up flaking big chunks of paint off the bottom bracket shell itself. But I think it does need something, because it looks pretty rough really, and the threads again just need cleaning up, so I think we will do that. Apart from that, the frame looks in pretty good condition. There's a bit of paint wear there where tyres obviously been wearing at some point. It's an unusual frame. It's a mono stay, seat stay, which is bolted on there. I don't know why it's bolted on there and then bonded down here. Some strange ideas back in the day, but bonded frame technology. More of that crusty grease here that's going to be coming off. This pump peg is a little bit corroded. I might be able to just tidy it up with some wet and dry. Paint is flaking off here, but the chances of matching this paint is slim. I've got white paint, I might just touch it up and see how it looks. Again, we're not doing a full respray. It's a cheap and cheerful sort of bike from back in the day. Okay, we're just going to start cleaning up the frame now. We're going to fit the seat post first, so we can clamp the frame by the seat post rather than the frame. So just do that now. Just run a bit of grease through this bolt as well. Give it a good soak in. Again, I'm using Zep. It's my go-to cleaner. It's really good for absolutely everything I've found. Frames, tyres, components, ultrasonics, you name it, I'll Zep it. There's quite a bit of corrosion underneath here, bubbling underneath the paint. So I think realistically that's as good as this is going to get. There's just too much corrosion bubbling up underneath the frame, too many paint chips. I think we'll just have to reassemble it and call it patina as they do. Like I say, if it was sort of a priceless frame, obviously it would be sent away for a full respray and we'd go that sort of route. But for the sake of this little project, it's simply not worth the financial outlay. Performance really is what we're concentrating on here, and that's what it will get. So first we're going to press the headset cups back in, so just grease the frame up. A little bit of grease in there. Cup. Just going to use a headset press to press these cups back in. I like to do one at a time on this. So we'll do the top one first. Just make sure it goes in straight. That's in. So now we'll do the bottom one. We need to check the alignment of the cup. What we need to do is make sure we get the Shimano writing lined up. You can either have it front and back or side to side. I think side to side makes more sense to me. Obviously performance wise it doesn't make any sense, but if you're looking at the bike you can see straight away what's fitted rather than having cables and stuff in the way. And again, we'll just wind that in now. There we go. we go, that's in. So that's those footage. Now we can fit the fork. So we just need to fit the seal that sits, obviously the lip sits over this crown race, and then the new bearing in there, and plenty of grease onto this bearing. Again, Mobile XHP 222 grease here. It'll work its way in once we get in there. I'm just going to put some on the inside of the bearing cup as well, just to make sure. And we'll just prep the top one. So with the top one, we need to just put this seal in first as well, before, otherwise it traps the bearing basically. So this goes in, so it just clips into place gently. And that basically holds the bearing in place. So you can't put the seal in first and then the bearing in, it won't fit. Okay, so now we can put the fork in and screw this down. So drop the washer in, make sure this tab sits in its little slot down the back. On with the lock nut. What you need to make sure is the lock nut doesn't bottom out on the top of the fork, so you basically run out of adjustment. Obviously this is as it came out, but if you're fitting a new fork, that's the thing you need to make sure of. So we've just got enough clearance there. Then we just need two 32mm spanners just to nip these up. Bit of a balancing act when you're tightening these up. What you tend to find is when you hold this and tighten it, it backs the bottom one off, so you need to sort of over tighten it in the first place ever so slightly. And then when you tighten it, it ends up in the right place. So fortunately, you don't have those problems nowadays with modern threadless headsets. It's probably a fraction tight, but when we get the bars in and the wheels, we can readjust it then. Just going to add the stem in now. Again, make sure there's some grease on here. There already was on this one, but make sure it's well greased. These have a real big habit of seizing up, so put some on the thread as well. Just drop that in nice. 6mm. Again, we're not going to tighten this up yet because we need to get it aligned with the wheel, but we'll just nip it into place for now. Again, we'll check the alignment and the torque of that when we get a wheel in, so that feels really good now. Nice and smooth. So headset and stem done. Just clean any excess grease you've got off. So just going to clean up this bottom bracket shell first. Bit of WD-40 in there and a brass brush. So that already looks a lot better now. I'm going to run a tap through here. It's basically just a giant tap. I've got a couple of these. Actually, this is one from AliExpress. So I've got a part tool one as well, but I tend to use that on ones that actually need sort of threads re-cutting after they've been damaged. This just needs chasing through and cleaning. So they don't look too bad at all. I'm going to try and face this off without smashing every single bit of paint off the bottom bracket shell. So with the facing tool, we need to screw these supports in first for a good fit. Pretty easy now the threads have been cleaned, that goes in quite nicely. Same with the left one. The tool in here just to screw these in with. These need to sit slightly below the edge of the cup, otherwise obviously we can't face, or we'll be doing this facing the tool. Just sit them 0.5 millimeter below, that should be fine. With a facing tool, it's got some basically teeth on here that basically just shave the paint off really, keep it flush. So you just need to assemble this as a set. In that bit, there's a big spring goes on the back, locks it all into place, and that's it really, ready to go. So you do need a bit of cutting fluid on this just to ease the cutting. Be enough. And we just turn the handle, just keep inspecting it, so you can probably see there where it's just took off the top edge of that there, and there's no paint removed at all at the bottom. We'll just pull this out a bit more. It just shows how uneven this bottom bracket cup really is, so we'll keep going until we've got a nice even silver. Just keep inspecting it, it's getting a bit better. Still plenty more to come off. So it's taken plenty off on this side, but the paint is still all there, so it was miles out. That's why it's worth doing on bottom brackets that rely on these cups being faced and parallel. It's important to do it. Get in there. Obviously this is not the sort of DIY tool you would buy. They're very expensive. Take it to a bike shop. So more cutting. Pretty time consuming, that one, to be fair. Tiny bit of paint left here, but we know it's all flat and parallel now, and luckily it didn't peel off, so that's good. So I just need to repeat that on the other side, and then we can refit the bottom bracket. So with the bottom bracket, obviously we're doing the fixed cup first. Plenty of grease on these threads, and I put the bearing in there and preloaded it with grease because it's a bit difficult to get to afterwards. So this just screws in anti-clockwise, nice and easy. That is pretty much in now. With the fixed cup, basically it's tightening itself up as you pedal, so they do need to be tight, but it's only ever going to tighten itself rather than come loose, which is why they're sometimes so challenging to undo. But nice and tight. So I don't think there is a socket available for fixed cup bottom bracket that I could torque with. Correct me if I'm wrong, but believe me, that's not going anywhere. That's nice and tight. So again, similar to the headset, it's just a matter of balancing the tightness of this and the lock ring. So this is the adjustment you'll get there. So just set that just correct, and then nip up this lock ring without spinning this. So you can see that tightening the adjustable cup. So hold that in place while you do that. Clean this grease off. You do want a bit of grease on this axle. Okay, so let's refit this chain set, and then we can just check the bottom bracket is adjusted correctly. Okay, so there's a tiny amount of play in this bottom bracket. I just need to adjust the adjustable cup slightly. Okay, so I've adjusted that, it's perfect now. Just going to torque this up 40 Newton meters. Okay, nice. Just refit the left-hand crank now. If you've not seen my video on air tools, then check it out, link in the corner. Okay, so I've refitted the cassette to the wheel, so just a matter of putting this into the frame now, like so. Tighten the quick release, make sure it's nice and straight between here and here. Okay, so rear derailleur, a bit of grease on the pivot there, on the bolt. Make sure you're sitting on your B tension stop, like that, and just tighten it up. So what we can do now is we can check the limits of this derailleur for the cassette before we put anything else on. So we're looking for the jockey wheel to be directly underneath the lower sprocket, obviously, in its home position, which it is. That's directly in line there. And at the top, again, that's perfect where it is. So front derailleur, put some grease on the bolt, obviously. And normally you'll see a slight indentation in the frame where it used to be mounted. That gives you a clue. But don't use that as the... but it is just an indication to get you in the right place initially. And then we may need to fine tune that. So we need a 1 to 3 millimeter gap between here. So we're nowhere near at the moment. That's pretty close. So again, spin it around. You'll see some of these tooth profiles are a lot lower and some are higher. So you need to make sure it's consistently 1 to 3 millimeters between here. We can go down a fraction more on this one. That's nice. You see a little red sticker on a new derailleur with a guide on there, tells you how to set that. And then we need to make sure the cage is parallel as well. So just when you tighten it up, make sure it doesn't move the derailleur, because sometimes it pulls it back in. You test this by hand, that's moving really smoothly, very nice. So no reason to doubt that that's not going to work properly when we get a cable on it. I think we'll just put the shifters on now. So when you fit this, there's a little cutout on the shifter here that goes onto a matching part here. It just clips into place and then just screw it back on. Okay. Being a flat head screw kind of gives you a clue that you don't need to go crazy on the torque. So on these older shifters, they had a option to go from friction mode, which is basically no indexing, to SIS, or obviously index mode. The idea of that is to get you home if you have an issue with a bent derailleur or something and you can't index any gears, you can flick this to friction and still get home. And that puts us back into what you'd expect indexing. Feel great, these do. I love these levers. I mean, obviously they're not particularly ergonomic compared to what you get nowadays built into the brake levers, but performance-wise they're brilliant. But I can't imagine having to reach down and change one of these in the middle of a sprint. It'd be a nightmare. So let's just put the other one on. Okay, so I'll just run that underneath the bottom bracket and up to the derailleur and see if we can set these. Okay, so let's just pinch this through the pinch bolt. Like I say, there's a very obvious place where this one goes. There's a little tab there, it goes over there, through a groove. Put a bit of tension on it, pull it. That looks nice. Beautiful. No indexing on this really, it's literally forwards and backwards, so mostly tuned by friction if you get any sort of cross chaining. I think that should. So on the rear derailleur, this brays on the frame. Doesn't have a slot, so you need to put the cable through it first. And we are reusing the older Shimano housing. It's a nice sort of silvery colour. It's difficult to get this, so, and it's in good condition. It comes with this special ferrule that goes into this braze on, so we're going to reuse this. It should be absolutely fine. Feels super smooth in there, so no reason to doubt it's going to work perfectly. So that's that in there. Run that through the derailleur. Super easy on these old ones, really is. Don't kink the cable there. And again, just run it through the derailleur. Very obvious place where it goes. There's a big slot down the back. Pull that nice and tight. Make sure you're in the proper gear. Again, put in some tension on it. We have got the barrel adjuster on the back, obviously, but get it as close as you can initially. On a 7-speed system, the index very easily, so it should be no problem. Okay, so that's tight. And just quick go of the gear lever. See, that's one click and it's moving perfectly. I think this will index straight away without any messing around. So simple. Now I've run it through its range of motion, there's a little bit of slack come on to there, so we can either use the barrel adjuster or pull the cable through back where it should be again. So I'm just going to pull this cable back through. We tend to try and reserve this barrel adjuster for when things sort of bed in, rather than maxing it out on installation. It's not really good practice. So just a little bit extra tension on there. Tighten this up. Again, brace your hand against here and here. Otherwise what happens is as soon as you turn this, what you're doing is moving the derailleur. Okay, before we put the chain on, I'm just going to trim these cables down and put an end cap. You should know by now one of my favourite tools is the Part Tool EP1 for cable ends. Very nice tool. You just literally slide it on, crimper on, done. Same on the back. Okay, so with this chain we'll split it by just pushing the pin the majority of the way out. This is the sort of way they used to do it back in the day before quick links, etc. So we know we're on the lowest sprocket on the shifter, so put the chain on there as well. Drop this through. There is still a special tab on here that we need to go behind. Don't put it over like this. You'd be amazed how many times I see it. It's pretty obvious on this one, but some of the newer derailleurs, it's not clear where you're supposed to put it. And if you get it the wrong way around, it does still work. It's just a bit noisy, and they've got metal to metal, so it's not quite right. So that should go on there now. And hopefully there's just enough chain in here just to hold it together while we use the chain tool. So we're just pressing this pin back through until we're flush on this side. Just take it easy. That looks flush. You'll probably find it's got a stiff link now, which is what this set of plates is for. It's actually okay, but it's just slightly proud, so I'll use this one to put that through there. There we go. Just a smidge. That's nice. Just using a dummy pedal at the moment before we put the proper ones on. So just trim this front derailleur, that's friction. We're going up to the top, beautiful shift. And then one flick on the back, let's see what happens. Okay, a little bit too much there. Look at that, DI2, eat your heart out. We've got a tiny bit of rub here, I think we've got a little bit too much cable tension. I'm just going to back that off a couple of turns, there we go, that's gone. Back down to the bottom. Beautiful. You're not getting any better than that. Trying the front, just down to the smaller ring. And that's the gears done. They are perfect. If only were all this easy. So I'm just going to put the pedals on there. May as well. Old-fashioned toe clips on this. You certainly don't see many of these around now. And just use a pedal spanner, tighten this up. That's my work stand making a noise, not the bike. It's tight. Same on the other side. Use plenty of grease on these threads, obviously. Left-hand pedal screws in the opposite way to what you'd think. And fit the front wheel, make sure there's some grease on your quick release. You do corrode. Directional tyre, make sure you get it the right way around. I always put the quick release on the left hand side of the bike. I'll show you why. Okay, so the reason you put the quick release on the left hand side is basically if you hit anything, well, it's unlikely, but if you hit anything, all it's going to do is tighten the quick release rather than go the other way around on this side of the bike. Potentially it would hit the quick release and undo, and then the wheel becomes loose. It's not so much a problem nowadays because we have the safety tabs on the fork, so even if it does come loose, the wheel's not going to fall out, it's just going to be pretty wobbly. But that's why you should always put it on this side of the bike. So if you do actually hit anything, mostly relevant to mountain bikes, obviously if you hit a branch or a rock or something, it's going to literally just going to tighten it on rather than loosen it off if it was on this side. Or X-Age hub. That takes me back. Fit these crank caps, there is a little slot. It really doesn't make any difference, but try and get them symmetric, just push them in. So it's coming up really nicely now. It's a shame these aren't metal, more expensive ones like the £20 per pair, ridiculous. So we're really getting somewhere now. Basically all we need to do now is fit the brakes, run some brake cables, take the bar, and I think we're about done then. So let's do those. So we're just going to finish off these brakes now, thread in the new cable through the lever. Nice and easy on these, through there. Then what we're going to do, then we need to feed it through this housing that we tape to the frame. Cable through, like that. Just take this off, we don't need it. Pull out the liner, just leave the cable. Now we just need to thread the housing over this cable through the frame and pull it through. Should be fairly straightforward. So the cable's through the other end now, so all we need to do is just feed this through. Nice and easy. So the only tricky bit is getting it out of the frame down this end, but that just comes straight through, so dead easy. Just set this into its lever housing with enough slack to wrap the bars and go around the bars. That should be about there. Same on the front, through the lever, thread this through. Nice and easy. Again, just locate that into its lever, done. And that's done as well. So now we can just put the calipers on. So plenty of grease on both the thread and the mounting bolt for the frame. And just thread this through. A bit easier with a ratchet on this one, there's a bit restricted access. So just hold the caliper onto the rim, wire this up, and it should be pretty much centered as it is. That's that. So once we get the cable through there, we can try that. Just need to fit a metal ferrule to the end of this cable. Just a very light nip to hold it on, tiny dint. Through the brake, through the pinch bolt, loosely tighten this just to hold it in place. That's through. Check your brake lever's still in the right place and cable's not pulled through. And we're just going to nip up this now. Just pull that through, tighten it up. Just check the lever action, not too bad at all that. We can fine tune later, but we're just getting it on the bike for now. Just cut this cable. We have some purple end caps, we can use these. That's a good match, nice. And just refit the front caliper the same. Again, plenty of grease on this bolt. These really do get extremely seized sometimes. It's tighten this in again, squeeze your brakes on, nip it up, and just run the cable through the caliper. Make sure your quick release lever is closed, like this. Again, just a ferrule on the cable, and just run the cable through the caliper. Again, just through the pinch bolt. I do wish manufacturers would make specific front brake cables. They're so wasteful. Over 50% of this is going in the bin. Recycling, obviously, but again, just lightly pinch that on, back it off a couple of millimeters, and tighten that up. Too slack, need a bit more through there. That's why you don't want to tighten this up as fully tight as you can, because you'll crimp the cable, and if you do need to make an adjustment, it just makes it a bit tricky. Makes a bit of a mess of the cable. That's nice. Then when you're happy with it, obviously tighten it up. Trim this one and the end cap. So brakes are on. This is just the bars left to wrap. We're just using insulating tape again just to keep this cable out of the way. Only brake cables on this, no gear cables obviously. Okay, hood's back. Just using some white tape. Unfortunately, this is not from AliExpress. This is from the old Wiggle shop in the UK before they closed down. It's actually a nice tape. This is, well, very stretchy. I always take no gloves when I'm wrapping bars. Keep them nice and clean, especially white tape. It's a bit too stretchy, this is. I don't like white bar tape generally. It looks good for about a week and then just looks terrible. Just wrap that up. We're going to do a figure of 8 through there, right back round again, and then we go up and across. There we go. That's gotcha. Plenty long enough. I could almost do the other one. Hood's back on. There's no gap there. It's quite nice that. It came with black caps, but I've got some chrome ones that I'm going to fit instead. I think it'll look a bit nicer. Just push those in. That's done. Just need to tape the top end there. And we just need insulating tape again to hold it in place. Nice and tight on these. That's that done. Okay, so I'll just wrap the other side. A bit fiddly these are sometimes. Just straighten the saddle up. Okay, so that's it done really. Like I say, it's a full nut and bolt. Everything, every single part has been off, lubricated, cleaned, replaced, new bearings, new bar tape, etc, etc. Yeah, sure, it's still a 35-year-old, fairly cheap bike, but the principle is going to be exactly the same if you're doing anything sort of a bit more exotic. So some nice old Colnago or something like that would be nice. Hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's quite a long one, but hopefully some of you have stuck it to the end. So next video, I think for the full service one, we've got a Specialized Tarmac SL7 in for some bits and pieces. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, all that great stuff. It really does help the channel grow. I'm really enjoying doing this, so hopefully we can build it into a decent sized community, and let's see where we end up. Thank you very much.